we do. We donate to church. We donate to Fellowship of Christian Athletes. A big thing that I've always instilled in my kids is if I ever see somebody that's homeless, I don't have to give them money, but I will never just go by somebody, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say somebody's at the stoplight or something. I give them a bottle of water. Or I've got mints, or I've got something that I can, granola bar, or something I can give them. And I've done that so much. My son's 6 years old now, that anytime we go by somebody that's homeless, he says, "Daddy, let's go help him out." I've just instilled that into him. And I got a funny story about this.
You're going to be told, by the way, that you're a good dad and that you've done a great job raising him. I mean, just that, 6 years old, he's already doing that.
He's already doing it. And it's just, it's become a habit. So much so that one time we were in the McDonald's drive-thru getting a, McGriddle for breakfast, and my son says, "Hey, Daddy, you didn't see this guy?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, we just passed somebody." And
What's up, everyone? Dan Rivers here. Welcome to the Compound Mindset, episode 17, with a friend of mine, Chris Singleton. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate you. Let's start off with the wisdom moment like we do every podcast. The wisdom moment right now is take a trip, find some quiet time to really get to know yourself. This is super powerful. This is something that when I was in Italy, I kind of used it for myself to figure out my faith in my religion. I took a trip and I definitely had some quiet time to do that. So I recommend that you get out there, whatever that trip is. Could be a weekend in the mountains, could be, I don't care, if you're just at your house. Just take that quiet time and get to know who you really are and do some deep thinking. So today, as everybody knows, Compound Mindset, we focus on 6 areas: health, wealth, relationships, faith, personal growth, and making the world a better place. Today we're going to focus a little bit on faith with Chris, and then hop into anything else he wants to dive into. So, Chris, thank you for coming.
Yeah, man.
One thing I love to ask all my guests is, who is Chris Singleton?
Who's Chris Singleton? So I am a husband. 5-year anniversary coming up. My father. I got 3 beautiful kids: 6-year-old, 2-year-old, and almost 7-month-old baby girl. She's definitely changed me. Having sons is cool, but having a girl is different, as you know.
Yes, I do.
So that's who I am. I get to travel around the country with a message of love and unity and hope. So, inspirational speaker. I've been investing in real estate, over the last 6 or 7 years. So
how many units you got now?
We got 21.
21. Look at this. It's crushing it.
So we're getting there. And other than that, man, I just want to be a good person. Mm-hmm. I saw a shirt the other day that said, it was simple. All it said was, "Be a good person." And I'm like, man, that's what I want people to think about me as. Just a good dude. So that's who I am.
Dude, I actually love that. One thing I have written on I'm going to have to do be a good person too. Yeah. I've written on my wall at home, it's do the right thing. And I know it sounds simple, but sometimes, things get a little, it's hard to always make sure you're doing the right thing. So be a good person. I'm going to add that to there as well. I mean, if we can leave back a legacy, the legacy I want to leave is a similar thing. Be a good person. I love that.
For sure.
So we're going to hop into faith today. So let's talk about what does faith look like for you?
Yeah, so I would say, if you ask me, hey, what's my religion? I'm a Christian. I was born into that kind of, when you're a kid, you just whatever your parents tell you to be, right? Yep. So I was kind of born into that, and then I had a pretty traumatic experience losing my mom, and so after that, I started searching personally. What is this? What does faith even mean? What is? They say God's out there. I've prayed before, but I've never prayed by myself. I've never read the Bible by myself or nothing like that. So I started that journey after I lost my mom, and I found strength. In realizing that Jesus, went through so much on the earth and was killed because he was perfect, and just learning about his life and the things that he the words that are left behind. It's been huge for me, man. So I'd say that's my pillar is I'm a Christian. I've born into that, but I didn't have that personal relationship until I lost my mom when I was 18. So that's what I would say my faith is. I share it when I can. I speak a lot around the country, and most times you can't talk about your faith, because I respect everybody's faith. You know, I don't. People that do believe, people that don't believe, whatever they believe, I respect everybody. That's my mission, is loving people. And I think when it comes to faith, that's what people should do more of, because a lot of times when it comes to people, their religion, or, you know, whatever their faith may be, it's like, hey, this is what I believe, and I don't like people that believe something different.
Yep.
At the core of faith, and at the core of every religion is, you know, being good to people. And so for me, I try to show that by the way I live my life. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at with my faith. I'm growing every single day. I always say I'm a sinner saved by grace, because I'm not perfect by any means.
Yeah, no one is. Yeah.
Nor will I probably ever be, right?
Yeah.
But I do believe that, you know, Jesus died on the cross for my sins, was dead and buried, raised on the third day, and, you know, whoever believes in him shall not perish. And so I'm sticking to that, holding on to it. And so, yeah, that's my faith, man.
Actually, I respect that. Jake and I, my right-hand man, Jake, we were having a conversation the other day about faith. And so many people these days use it to justify their actions, you know, and I just see it all the time, whether it's, you know, people with different political views, people with different just views in general. Hate spewed, and then in the next breath, they're talking about God. And you mentioned a good point there. It's, you want to be a good person. Like, you're using faith to be a good person. You're not using it as a backing of having a one-sided perspective, not listening to someone else and saying, but I believe in God, so that's why.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a term that people use, and I thought it was funny because, you know, I've seen it happen countless times. When I say it, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's true. They call some people Bible thumpers. Okay. And what they mean by that is, if they see somebody, they'll say, you know, this is why you're bad. Boom. The Bible said boom. You know, they just hit them with whatever it may be. And the easiest way to get somebody to run away from religion, whatever religion you're part of, is to tell them how bad they are because of, you know what I'm saying? Like, instead of leading with love and leading with, hey man, I want to love you and teach you something, or, you know, share with my heart about something. They start telling you how wrong and how bad of a person you are. You're like, well, I don't want to be a part of whatever this person's a part of if I have to be like that, you know? And I prided myself on leading with love. I think my mom did a good job of that. You know, she always placed like faith and religion like a blanket on me, whereas some parents, they force it down your throat, and you know, and by the time you're 18, you're like, oh man, okay, I'm vomiting all this stuff up and I'm getting as far away as I can. Yep. And my mom was kind of like placing it on me like a blanket, and so I think that was a blessing, because when I really needed it, I didn't run away. You know, I went to it. So
no, I think that's the Bible thumper. You're so right. I mean, you know, I've talked to you kind of deep on that. I'm faithful, not necessarily religious, and I think that's exactly what happened to me. Like, I remember there was one time I was in church, and my oldest sister is gay, and we're in church and we're sitting together, and it came to the point that the priest was saying so many things, and this is a Christian Catholic church. The priest was saying so many things pretty much against gay people, and I just looked at my sister. I was like, you're not wanted here. Like, you got to get out of here, like, getting around. But in seriousness, it really bothered me. It was just like, hey, you're using a Bible to basically talk about how, like, my sister is not a good person because it's something out of her control. Like, she is, I mean, obviously she doesn't want, I don't think she chooses to be gay and have people have issues with that. You know what I mean? So it kind of pushed me away. But now as I get older and I meet people like you, and I have a lot of good friends who are involved in, you know, religious, whether it's Catholic, whatever the case is, I feel like there's a lot more establishments that are a little bit more open-minded these days and not necessarily thumping the Bible.
Yeah, and even in your sister's case, man, I came from a place where when I was growing up, people would say, oh, this person can't be at church, or this person. As you grow up, you're like, man, they don't choose to be this way. That's how they were born, right? And if somebody's born that way, how dare I say, I can't love this person, I can't support this person, I can't teach them about the good book just because they're born a certain way, right? So I've always been in a position of leading with love. It doesn't matter what somebody believes or who they like, who they don't like. I want to love them. When they see that that's genuine, then they're like, okay, well, maybe I can check out whoever this person believes in. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm glad you're kind of growing and seeing, hey, you know, some people are like, oh man, you have a tattoo, you're going to hell, right? There's some people that are like that still to this day. And then there's some people that say, hey, you know, we might be different, but I'm gonna pray for you. You can love me, and we'll move forward together. So
no, and I think that's important, and that's what really opened my mind to you. And when I read your book, I I'm going to butcher it.
Stories behind
stances. Yeah, stories behind stances. I loved it because it was a lot about perspective, but giving. I think a lot of times it's anything in life, like you said, politics or I say politics, but whatever's going on in the world, there's always two sides of things.
Yeah.
And your book does a really good job of saying yes. And guess what? Both people are kind of right. Mm-hmm. It's just a different perspective. Like you could be for gun rights or against gun rights, and you could both be right. Yeah. You don't have to be completely like one person has to be right, one person has to be wrong. And I think to me, for this world to truly grow and be better, my personal opinion is just giving people proper opportunity, no matter who you are, where you're from, and having more perspectives of other people's lives by traveling, getting out of your hometown, going to see different cultures, getting immersed in it, and just seeing, hey, you might have thought this way your whole life because you grew up in 0.1110% of instances that you're ever going to see in your life. And there's so many other things going on. There's so many other people's like cultures and religions and just mindsets and thought processes that if you can get out of that and go talk to more people and find more perspectives, I feel like the unity would be a lot easier to achieve. I don't know.
I agree, man. And I love the fact that even when it comes to faiths, man, like, if you just stop and think about where somebody's from, where the country they were born in, the culture that they grew up in. In my book, I gave an example, and I always try to make it so where you can feel empathy for both sides, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in one of the examples, especially today, this is important. We talked about, border control was one of my examples. And you have some people that just say, man, we need to have a wall around the United States. This is like heaven. The closest thing to heaven is the United States, right? Yep. And they say, I don't want anybody else in. And then there's some people that say, hey, man, this is the land of opportunity. Like, I want people to be able to have the shot to come here and work the behind off and get it. So there's both sides of it right now. Mm-hmm. And then I try to give a story behind it. So if you have a little kid who saw their mom die on their trip to America, to give them a better life, mm-hmm. and you're like, man, I just wish it would have been a little bit easier for my mom. Then you can feel for that kid, right? She's running away from a traumatic relationship with the dad back in, wherever they're from. Yeah. They're trying to get a better life. And you feel for that kid like, man, okay, I understand it. Then you have another side where it's like, hey, such and such lost his job because somebody else from another country came in and did it at a cheaper rate or whatever it may have been. And they may not be paying tax and whatever it is, right? And so you're like, I feel for that business owner too. Mm-hmm. And so like I try to give both sides of every story and realize, hey, man, it can be yes and I'm sad for this person, and I also think that person had a pretty rough go at it too, Yep. Instead of being like, with faith, hey, I believe this and you think that, so I can't even look at you. Yep. It can be like, I think this way and I can still respect whatever that you believe in. So I think that's super important for sure.
No, and I honestly, I really like that about your book because it was like you actually can understand both perspectives mm-hmm. and be like, exactly, they're both not necessarily right or wrong, but they both have a point. They both have a reason to feel the way they do. Think
about, even in business, you think about like how do we make it so both sides win, or they both feel like they win, right? Yeah. And anytime it's like this person feels like they're always getting over on somebody, word's going to spread around about that. But if you're always making sure it's a win-win every single time, like I know this person's story, I make sure they're taken care of. Yes, I get the deal done so that it's profitable for me, but they don't walk away feeling like they just got destroyed, right? And if you keep doing that over and over, people are going to be like, man, I respect this person. Yeah.
Dude, I love it. Love it. Tell me a little bit about, I know you're a public speaker. I know you speak, how many times did you speak last year?
150 last year. 150
that's it, just 150 days. That's it. Out there speaking. Do you, unfortunately, I've not seen one of your speeches yet, so I don't know this. Do you talk about faith in your speeches? Is that something is that like a core focus? Does that just come up from time to time and on the audience?
Yeah, it depends on the audience for sure. There's some audiences where they say, hey, give me free reign. Hey, Chris, share your full experience, share your life. And then, in the corporate setting, I can't do that, in schools too. Like I go to speak at schools, speak to a lot of teachers in school districts, and I really can't share my faith, but I'm okay with that. Like I mentioned, like it's a core part of who I am, but I can still get this message of love across without sharing that part of it, right? Yep. Now maybe behind the scenes they might ask me a question about my faith and I share it then, but I don't have to be forcing it down anybody's throat every time I speak. You know, my mission is all about loving people, and I want to love people of different faiths for sure. So I don't always share it, but sometimes it's there.
Gotcha. Now, it sounds like obviously you said your mom was very religious too. Have you been like full-hearted Christian since day one, since you were a kid and really loved it? Was it, when you were 18 that you got more involved in it, or like, what is it always been your journey?
No, I would say,
because most kids don't like religion. No.
I mean, there are some kids that are out there that is wild, where I used to kind of make fun of those kids, unfortunately, where I'm like, dude, why is this guy going so hard? Like when we were kids growing up. And it's kind of immature. Do you think that way? And so for me, when I was in high school, I would have said I was a Christian, or, I would have said I was a believer, but my life didn't look that way, right? And I think that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
They say this, but their actions are something totally different. And then there was a point where I said, hey, man, I felt so much confidence in myself that I don't have to pretend to be somebody else, right? I don't have to sleep with 50 girls or 150 girls to feel like I'm the man. You know what I'm saying? There comes a point in every person's life where I feel if I stick to my faith and my values, I have enough self-confidence in myself to not want to do stuff that other people might think are cool. And I think I didn't get to that point once I really needed that relationship with Jesus for me. Once I was a freshman in college, that was when things really changed. Because before I wasn't really reading my Bible. I was going to church because my mom was a reverend. She was an ordained minister. And I grew up in the church, but I wasn't active in my faith, is what I like to say, until my freshman year of college. And then from then I started, reading the Tony Dungy Uncommon Life Men's Devotional, which I absolutely love. I recommend that to anybody that's any man that's a business owner, any man that is an athlete, any man that likes devotionals. Like I think that's a phenomenal one. Then once I started that personal journey, that's what kind of led me to where I am today, where, I read my Bible every single day. I have different goals that I set, trying to read the book of Proverbs, which is all about wisdom, and things of that nature. So it's grown over time.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to give a shout out to Champion Tribe. That's how I actually met Chris. He has an accountability group with a good buddy of his, Ryan. And I see you guys post on there all the time, reading the Bible, reading certain verses of the Bible. So it's not something that you just talk about. That group really showed me that there are some people out there that do what they say. They really have integrity, and you guys take your goals serious. So
yeah, for sure. So
like, again, I'm not being someone that necessarily reads the Bible or goes through that stuff, but I respect that you're continuous. You're reading it at night. You're there's a lot of good lessons I'm sure learned from the Bible.
Yeah, and I mean, even for me, I was at the airport. I'm in Minnesota the other day, and I got off while I went to take my rental car back, and the guy behind the Hertz counter, he's on break, and he's praying on his knees. He's Muslim, and he's praying. He's doing his thing, and I'm seeing that. I'm like, man, this guy's on his break and he's doing that. I just respect it, right? Yeah. I don't believe what he believes, nor probably will I ever, but I respect it. I think that's important when you see somebody that lives out a life of faith, that's good to people, and believes what they believe. Like, I think you can't knock it for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. How is faith? Let's talk about your family. We talk about business, kind of like, that angle of things. But with your family, how does faith come into play there?
It's huge, man. The Bible in Exodus, it actually says you should honor your mother and your father, right? So that's part of what the good book tells us to do. And so for me, the way that I live my life, I want to honor my mom and dad every single day. As you know, for me, like the greatest compliment a parent can receive is when somebody tells them that, hey man, your son was raised the right way, or your daughter was raised the right way, right? That's the greatest compliment you can receive, because being a parent is not easy.
No.
You want to give them everything, but you want to make them work.
Yep.
So you don't want them to think everything's handed to them, but you don't want them to struggle like you may or may not have. So you're like, it's a conflict. But when somebody says, hey, you were raised the right way, you're like, man, okay, that means I toughened them up, but they're smart enough to know, this just means you did the right thing. So the book of Exodus tells us to do that. Also, the Bible says we should train a child up in the way that he should go, and when he grows old, he won't depart from it. Meaning, like, you should instill these things in your kids when they're young, and hopefully by the time they're 18 or 27, when life hits them, they won't depart from the thing that you taught them. And so does that always happen? No. You have some times where I like to use baseball references, where you put a kid on second base by giving them so much, or third base by giving them so much and making life easy for them. And, their vices make them go backwards, right?
Yeah.
But our mission is to do what we can to provide great children. So when it comes to my family, I always think about those couple excerpts in the Bible. Also, man, we're called to be the priest, provider, and protector of our family. The Bible says us to be the priest, the provider, and protector. Mm-hmm. And so I want to be those three things and then some, right? I still want to, be the loving father, the teacher, all different things. So I think it definitely plays a role in me being a husband and a father.
Do your kids family. I know your kids are young. I think you said 2, 6, and obviously 7 months now?
Yeah.
7 months. So they're still young, but do you read so when you read the Bible, do you read it with them? Like, how do you incorporate your kids into? So
I pray over my kids every single night before bed. Like, it's a routine. I tuck them in. My 6-year-old, he's in the probably last year or so of him wanting to tuck me in, tuck him in. So every single night I'll pray over him. And it's a simple prayer. Pray for health. I thank God for their health. It's the one thing I always try to do. I try to say thank you before I ask for anything. And then after I pray over them, that's our nightly routine. My sons go to a small private Christian school right now. They'll probably go there through elementary school. Then I want them to kind of get beat up a little bit and go to public school and middle school, right?
Toughen up.
But I don't know about my daughter. Maybe I'll keep my daughter there the whole time. We'll see. But as of right now,
she's going to be the toughest one of your kids.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. I already know it. But so that's kind of the foundation that we give them. My son comes home and he knows different scriptures from school, which is really cool to see. So that's kind of how I instill faith in them. I don't really read the Bible to them like that. Mm-hmm. I may say, hey, the Bible says this, buddy, right? Or things of that nature. But I'm not sitting there reading, hey, in Genesis 2:5, let's read this whole chapter. They'd be like, Dad, if you don't get out of my face, right?
You're going to lose them.
So, no, I'm not doing that, no.
No, that makes sense. I mean, but you're trying to, like we started this conversation up, help them be good people.
Be good people,
that's the thing.
For sure.
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to come back to that. I have a question for you, but probably going to make you feel I'm going to try to make you feel a little awkward, but you're going to answer. You're going to answer.
I'm an open book, man.
Tell me how your faith has evolved over time. Especially, it's just as humans, we evolve from, how old are you right now? 27?
27.
27. Yeah. So, when teenagers I feel like early 20s to mid to late 20s, I became such a different person in like 4 or 5 years, just in general.
Yeah.
So do you see you as a person, your faith, whatever the case is, how have you evolved over the past 5-6 years, especially?
Man, I think, initially my faith was asking for things a lot, right? God, if you help me get this, I'll glorify you. Like, God, if you can help me. It was a lot of that. And, I've just been through so much tragedy that God's pulled me through those storms. And so I just say, if I have a problem, Lord, you've got me through it before. I know you'll do it again. I don't have faith in that. So that's a big part that's changed over the years. I don't ask for a lot anymore because I feel like I'm so blessed, man. I feel like I've been given so much. So how dare I ask for this, and this when, He's given me abundance. So that's one thing that's changed. I also read my Bible a lot more. Before I'd listen to stuff, or I'd, listen to my pastor. But, now I'm personally reading my Bible a lot more. Like this year, I'm trying to read the Gospels again, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which basically details Jesus' life, right? Just 4 different accounts of people who saw Jesus walk on the earth and like just talking about his life and how he lived his life and the miracles and all that stuff. So, I think that's the big part of it is reading myself more. I've always prayed myself. So, ever since when I was like 18 or 19, I started praying for myself after I lost my mom. So that part just hasn't really evolved, but just diving into the book. You know, the Bible is the best-selling book of all time, right? It's like the #1 bestseller of all time. So even people that don't believe, it's like, well, if it's a bestseller of all time, let's at least check out what the heck is in this thing. Yeah. Everybody's reading it, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I started diving into it a lot more. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the Bible. Again, growing up Christian, I'm confirmed. Went through the whole process when I was younger. Now that I see it, I think the Bible has so many. If you even just use it for just learning lessons of stories, not necessarily. I don't necessarily believe in Jesus or whatever the case, but the learning lessons of, throughout the whole journey of just being a good person. That's really what it says, and it's not even just the Bible. Like I did. Crazy, but literally just before 9/11, the semester before, I studied Muslim studies just because I wanted to learn culture stuff. And in college, I was in college then. Yeah, I'm a lot older than you. Muslim studies and just understand. My wife's Jewish, so understanding like Judaism to some degree, and they're all pretty much very similar. Muslim. The Quran and everything, it's not necessarily 10 commandments, but very close to it. It's basically just being a good person and doing the right thing. And same thing in Judaism and Christianity. And again, I'm not saying I'm an expert in any of those areas, but the premise of all of them seem to be just be a good person. Yeah. And that's why I like how you're very open-minded. It doesn't matter if someone believes in something different than you. Are you believing in a faith? Are you trying to be a better person every day? Are you trying to grow as a person?
Yeah, in a faith that is loving, right? Some people, there's some crazy stuff out there, you know? Yeah. And so I wouldn't be a huge fan of those, even though I would respect somebody that thinks a little something off the wall. But if it leads to harm and destruction, that kind of stuff, that breaks my heart. So of course, I'm probably not agreeing with that, but 99.9% of the things are like, hey, love people, be a good person, do unto others as you would want done unto you, that kind of stuff. And I think that's universal. Yeah.
Maybe not like Scientology with L. Ron Hubbard and the aliens, but it's...
Well, there's a lot of celebrities that are into Scientology and stuff. And so I don't know enough about it. I think I saw one documentary and the guy was saying it was life-changing for him, and so I don't know enough about it to kind of really go through it. But as long as there's no harm, where you're supposed to do bad to other people to be good in that religion,
like cult-esque,
as long as nothing like that, then I'll definitely respect it. Yeah,
I used to live in Scientology heaven, like the main haven. The headquarters in Clearwater, Florida. I tell you about it sometime.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty funny religion. Unique, I'll say. All right. So one thing I want to ask you, you talk about being a good person. And I know this is probably not easy to do because you don't normally brag about this or talk about it, because usually when we try to do good deeds, we try to keep it to ourselves. But I want people to hear, like, what are some things that you've done that you've been able to help affect people? Like we were talking earlier about Christian over there from Guatemala. Yeah. And I know you help with kids over in other countries. So just tell me a little bit about some of the things you've been doing to help the world.
Yeah, it's funny, and this is a little joke we made because we both sponsor some kids in Guatemala for Food for the Hungry, and I'm like, hey man, am I sponsoring that same kid? They getting us right now, right? So we laughed about that. But when I feel called to do something, man, I just do it. So me and my wife, we sponsored 10 kids down in Guatemala, and we also we gave $10,000 for them to build a little sports complex down there. It's going to be a asphalt, like blacktop with some goals on both sides and basketball. So soccer goals and basketball goals on both sides. So, they raise money for a hospital. And I said, man, the kids that are sick want, when they're able to get out and have some fun, like I want them to be able to do something, or brother and sister that's waiting for them. And so me and my wife did that.
I love that. That's awesome, because you're giving them like health, like they get to run around, they get to, the unity of playing sports together, as well as getting their mind off of what they need to get their mind off of.
That's good. Yeah, so I mean, awesome. That's one thing we do. We donate to church, we donate to Fellowship of Christian Athletes. A big thing that I've always instilled in my kids is if I ever see somebody that's homeless, I don't have to give them money, but I will never just go by somebody, right? So let's say somebody's at the stoplight or something, I give them a bottle of water, or I've got mints, or I've got something that I can, granola bar, or something I can give them. And I've done that so much. My son's 6 years old now, that anytime we go by somebody that's homeless, he says, "Daddy, let's go help him out." I've just instilled that into him. And I got a funny story about this.
You're going to be told, by the way, that you're a good dad and that you've done a great job raising him. I mean, just that,
I hope.
6 years old, he's already doing that.
He's already doing it. And it's just, it's become a habit. So much so that one time we were in the McDonald's drive-thru getting a, McGriddle for breakfast, and my son says, "Hey, Daddy, you didn't see this guy?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, we just passed somebody." And he's like, "You're going to help him out, right?" I'm like, "Dang, I didn't even see him." Of course I am, right? Yeah. And so I just want to, not to have to give somebody money all the time or whatever it may be, because they'll say, "Chris, man, half the time they're probably using this for other things." But my intent wasn't that. My intent was to help somebody that needs it. And I've been in need before, and I've been, given things, and it helped me out big time. So always do that, man. And one really quick funny story. I was at the grocery store the other day. A family from somewhere else outside of the U.S. needed some money for groceries, and I tried to help them out. I said, "I will buy you anything you want." They said, "No, just money." I said, "Okay." Usually people just say that. I'm not going to do it for them. And I was about to walk inside to buy them groceries, and the cop said, "Hey, Chris, this family right here, they've always been scamming. Please don't buy them anything." And
wow.
And so I was this close to doing it for somebody that didn't need it, but it's all about my intent, though.
It's funny that you mentioned that too, that as far as it being your intent, because when people say that, I feel like it's just an excuse not to help somebody. Because I'm not saying they're wrong. Like, yes, they could use the money to go buy alcohol or drugs. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, what if they're not? What if 70% aren't using it, or even 20% are using it for the right thing? Still, giving that money is helping 20% of the people. And you can't necessarily control someone else's actions, but as we talked about this, you can give them the opportunity. By giving them the money or water or whatever, giving them an opportunity to hopefully live a little bit better that one day. And obviously they're struggling.
Yeah, and it's like nobody wanted to. I mean, just go back to faith. Like, as a good-hearted person, you think that person grew up wanting to be an addict on the street, or wanting to be homeless, or wanting to need stuff. Like, nobody grows up wanting to do that. I don't know what circumstances they went through, but does it hurt me at all to give somebody $1.75? Does it hurt me to get somebody an extra McGriddle out the McDonald's drive-thru? No, it doesn't hurt me, at all. Like, so why would I not do it? Yep. As an extra $2.50 gonna ruin my day and my life? No. And so I've just realized that, and I feel like I've just been blessed more from giving, and I've seen that time and time again in my life. So maybe I'm a little superstitious with it, that I've just been doing it so long that it's kind of just normal to me. But I'm glad that my son sees it, and now it's become part of who he is.
I honestly think that's just so amazing, because that's probably my biggest thing I want to do with my daughter is show her how to be a good person. Like on on Christmas, we deliver toys with Toys for Tots, and I'm bringing her, and she's 2 years old. She doesn't know what we're doing, but hopefully by the time she's 4 and 5 and 6, she starts seeing this to become a better person. I love the homeless thing, and I'm going to try to do a better job. No, I'm not going to try. I'm going to do a better job with that. Maybe have more waters in my car to. I never have any cash on me. Yeah. So a granola bar is a good one too. Yeah. To help truly feed people who probably need something that might be their only meal that day. Yeah. So I just love
And also, you've never felt worse after you do something nice for somebody else, right? You never feel worse after. It's not like, "Oh man, I gave this homeless guy a pair of socks, now I feel terrible." No, you feel good. So it's rewarding to you too, Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of our duty as well, is if we're going to be, we are going to be very successful in life. I don't care. We're going to have our downfalls. We're going to have our issues, but overall in life, we're going to be successful.
Exactly.
And what's success without giving some back and trying to be that good person and making someone's day and making them happy? I mean, I know we'll go back to religion probably has instilled that in you, but I bet you, maybe I'm wrong, but if you weren't religious, you would still be a good person and still do these amazing things, because it's all about just trying to help other people and making someone's life a little bit better.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'd be without. I feel like I'd still be a good person, good dude. But I mean, a lot of the core of it is because, I want to give, I want to love my neighbor as myself, like Jesus tells us to do. So it's like just things like that. It just aligns with my mission and who I am. But some people that don't believe, their morals are totally different. Their morals are, hey, it's about me. Maybe they think they're the God of the universe or whatever it may be, and they just think, hey, I'm above this person or whatever it may be. There's different faiths and different thought processes behind it. But for most people and most faiths, it's like, hey, be good to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jake and I are funny. We have some deep conversation, and we were talking about that the other day too. As far as I went to Toastmasters, I'm trying to be a better speaker, just in general. And one of the guys is ranting and raving about everybody's selfish, and people aren't good by nature, and they're all selfish. And Jake and I were talking, and Jake's a very straight shooter. He's like, honestly, you think about it from back in the caveman days, like, you have to survive. So just human nature is to be selfish and take care of yourself. So to fight through that is pretty difficult. And to not be religious or faithful, it's probably that much harder, because you're not bringing it to your attention and studying it on a continual basis. And we all know, if you don't study something or read it over and over again or do it over and over again, it's not necessarily going to be natural for you to do, so you're probably less apt to do it. So bringing faith involved in religion, like you read in the Bible and reading these stories, probably just keeps on reinstilling it in your brain to say, hey, be a good person, do the right thing.
It's also mindset, man. Like, by reading the Bible and realizing that what I've been given, it's because I've been blessed. That's my thought process. Mm-hmm. Like, man, there's probably a million people that have a story to tell like I do. There's probably a million people that could speak on the stages that I speak on. I don't deserve, I'm 27 years old, right? I don't deserve to make $1 million a year, but I've been able to do it because I've been blessed. And so if I've been blessed, I don't think it's always me. Yes, I put the time in. Yes, I work, but I get lucky. Like, there's no way that somebody should be able to pay me the money that they pay me for me to speak. And so I'm thinking, because I have this mindset of, hey, this is going to keep growing. It's going to keep going. So if I give, it's okay. Give and you shall receive, the good book says, right? So I'm like, I give, and I think that it's going to be returned to me and then some. So that's another part of my faith, I guess. It just rolls over.
I have to disagree with you one thing. You deserve it. You absolutely deserve it.
Well,
you're willing to put the hours in and work hard and wake up at 4 a.m. to work out and then go speak in Utah. Yeah. So, yes, you do deserve it.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, I know some people don't have the work ethic, and also I feel blessed that I do have that work ethic. Mm-hmm. And the mindset that I have, I'm grateful for it, for sure.
And it's being around people, like-minded people, at least for me, helps keep that motivation and that mindset. And
if you're around a bunch of people that are Debbie Downers and hate life and hate the world, like, you're gonna be that way.
Yep.
If you're around people that say, hey, man, this is an obstacle. An obstacle is an opportunity for people that are ambitious, right? Mm-hmm. So you're like, oh man, this is the only thing you're worried about? Yeah. Oh, we can get to that, no problem.
Exactly.
It like builds you up, like, oh, maybe it's not as hard as I thought it was, right? So I think that's good. The Bible also says iron sharpens iron, so so one person sharpens another. So if I'm feeling down about something and you come up, you encourage me, like, that's big, man. That means a lot for people, especially me. I've been in instances where it's like, man, life is hard. Mm-hmm. And somebody comes right next to you and says, yeah, it's hard, but I got you. We're going to get through it together. And that's big.
Powerful, man. Let's talk, let's roll that into this. I want you to help with some words of wisdom for some people who maybe need some guidance to find themselves, faith, religion, whatever it is. What are some words of wisdom you have?
Yeah, I'd say, number one, the reason why I love the religion that I'm a part of is, for me, Jesus died on the cross, and because he died on the cross, my sins have been forgiven, right? Meaning, like, he died for my sins. And so, am I going to be perfect? No. Do I try to be perfect? Yeah, I try to be. Am I going to be? Absolutely not. But because he's died on the cross for me, those sins are forgiven. That's why I like Christianity, because it's like, man, nobody's going to be perfect. But he took that. He took the burden of being perfect away. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I like that faith. But if people are trying to just search for it, I think prayer is important. Yep. Some people do meditation. And so meditation is big for some people. I think just being grounded, not worrying about tomorrow, just trying to figure out how you can put one foot in front of the other. The first step is important. Also, one of my favorite quotes, this guy named Charles Swindoll, he said, life is two things, action and reaction. He said 10% action, 90% reaction. And what that means is, we don't control 10% of our lives. None of us do. didn't choose where we were born, didn't choose our parents, didn't choose our first language. We didn't choose any of those things. That's our 10%. The 90% is how we respond to the things that we don't choose. And so if somebody finds himself in a rough spot right now where it's hard, life has been beating them up, if you have the mindset, hey, this is only my 10%, my response is everything in my life, it gives us back that power.
Yep.
Like, man, yes, it's been tough, but that's only 10. We got 90% to work with. So if anybody's out there struggling, I hope that you adopt that mindset. And if life's hard, just think about it as your 10.
I love that. That's awesome. There's a book I'm listening to right now called Change Your Paradigm. It kind of talks about that, how our paradigm is basically our habits and everything that's informed either by things we can't control, things we can control. And we make all of our decisions based on this paradigm. And it's really hard to change your paradigm, but if you work hard at it, you can actually change your trajectory of life.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's a pretty powerful book. And I just want to add one more thing. One thing that's helped me out as well with that, anybody out here listening, we have a little bit of a different journey, Chris and I, but I write down what I'm grateful for on a daily basis. I actually have a pad that we made up for my company. On one side, it's all of our business goals for the day, what we're going to achieve, our word or phrase of the year. On the other side, I think you've probably seen this, I posted in the tribe. Yeah. The other side is my personal stuff, personal word of the year, goals, but I also put on there what I'm grateful for that day. And to me, it could be the smallest thing in the world. And really try to think about it. It could literally be that, I'm super grateful that so-and-so held the door. Someone held the door for me when I had a bunch of boxes in my hand. It sounds small, but I just felt grateful for that. So I didn't, whatever the case is, or just time I get to spend with my daughter, or being able to interview you and have a chat on our podcast, like the smallest things. But the more I write down what I'm grateful for, and then when I pray, because I do pray, I try to never pray for myself as much as I can. I pray for others. And that's been pretty powerful and impactful too. If I say, hey, I'm not going to focus on myself. I'm going to focus on, I have a good friend who's getting divorced. I'm going to pray for him. Or a guy I was with literally found out his daughter for the third time had cancer. Again, come back, 4 years old. And I'm immediately all right, I'm going to pray for his daughter and the family. And it's just been very powerful to me, especially not necessarily having a religion, but faith of just asking for help for other people. It's just a little empowering each day. Yeah.
And when you go through really tough stuff, for some people, they will think, hey, I don't need a guy. I don't need faith. I don't need religion. I don't need anything until you're hit with something that you yourself cannot overcome by yourself, right? And then for the first time you say, God, if you're out there, I need you, right? And so for me, I'm always preparing, like, Lord, I want to have this relationship to where I can talk to you every single day. I'm not one of those people that hear, hey, Chris, this is me talking. I'm not. I don't even pretend like no, that's not me, right? But I feel like, man, certain times when things happen in my life, I'm like, that's not a coincidence. That was something out of this world. That was God speaking to me just now. I got that message after I've been praying for this, after I've been thinking about, like, there's certain times it happens. And I encourage people, man, don't look for your faith when everything's bad. How about you start now?
Yeah.
You start now, you start praying now, you start figuring out what that means to you now. Because most people only pray when or go to God when it's rock bottom.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Build that relationship now.
That's a good point. I like that, because then you know how to do it too, and you're doing it for the right reasons. It's not. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's almost kind of selfish to say, hey, I'm only going to ask when I'm in struggle, not necessarily build a relationship or do the right thing when everything's great.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if selfish is the right word, but I agree with you. Like, build that relationship with whatever religion, whatever God, whatever you believe in, build that early on when things are great. Because guess what? Life is going to get rocky. We all die. Yeah. We all go through sicknesses and losses in our life that absolutely suck. It's just a part of life. Yeah. So we're going to need that strength at some point.
And I remember the chaplain for the Patriots told me this, and I think this is something that...
Patriots?
Yeah, the Patriots. He said, Chris, for people that are believers in like heaven and stuff, he said, earth is the closest we will ever get to hell. And he said, sometimes in life we go through hell. Mm-hmm. And he said, but for believers, like this is the closest it'll get. we won't go to hell, right? So for me, that gave me a good perspective on, man, life is hard sometimes, but this is as hard as it's going to get, right? Losing my mom the way I lost my mom, it's probably as hard as it's going to get. People who lose kids, people who, go through divorce, like whatever it may be, it's probably as hard as it's going to get. And so having that perspective gave me a lot of courage for the rest of my life.
Love it. Is there anything else you want to talk about with faith, or ready to hop in the compound round?
Let's do it. Compound round.
Let's do it. All right. So compound mindset, like we talked about, it's health, mental and physical health, wealth, relationships, faith, personal growth, and making the world a better place. We've kind of touched on a few of those actually in this chat, but is there any one of those 6 areas that you're, besides faith, that you're truly focusing on right now in your life?
Yeah, I think my relationships is super important. I got 3 beautiful kids. I want them to grow up and say, man, my dad crushed it in business. He crushed it making the world a better place, but he crushed it as a dad too. I think that's super important. We can only control the kids that we put out of our house, right? We can't control the kids that grow up all over the world. We can control ours to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And then my wife, man, I've been with my wife since we were 15 years old. And so, one of the scariest thoughts that I have is that maybe one day somebody says to my wife, man, Chris is amazing. And my wife returns and says, maybe he's amazing to you, but he's not an amazing husband, not an amazing dad. And to me, that's called being a public success and private failure. I never want to become that. So being great to my woman is important. So relationships is huge. Faith is huge. And I feel like from those 2 things, man, I've been super blessed, financially, wealth-wise. So I'm going to keep stewarding that. And, everything else is falling into place. As long as my wife, my kids are good, my faith is good, I feel like I can crush it in every other aspect.
I absolutely love that. I'm going to have to ask Nicole next time I see her to write on the board, don't be a public success and a private failure. I love that, because I think a lot of people probably are. You have to look like think about that. Keeping up with the Joneses is exactly that. Yeah. You're trying to be an image that you're not necessarily, and behind the scenes you're a mess, you're a wreck. Yeah. So focus on both. Yeah.
You're hanging on by your fingernails, right? And everybody thinks you got it going on. But your relationship with your kids is barely hanging on. Your relationship with your wife is barely hanging on. Your bank account is barely holding on because you've been just throwing it around, right? So, yeah, I think that's important. Public success and private success. That's a successful person to me, where you say, man, this guy's crushing in business and life, and their wife also says, yeah, this guy's crushing as a husband and as a father as well. So that's what I aspire to be. And I always ask my wife, hey, how you think I'm doing right now? Every now and then she'll tell me, you know what, we could go on another date, or you know what, you could put your phone down, or so there are some moments like that. Yeah. And I'm glad that I asked that question, because then it lets me know there's always growth.
And your wife's a strong woman, so she's going to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
She's not going to be...
She ain't biting that tongue at all. No. She going to let me know in a heartbeat.
I love that. Yeah, we're so much alike in that area. I've failed that in the past, being divorced. Not the private life wasn't there, and just been a big focus of mine with my wife now and family. So,
what a blessing that you got that family now, and you're making it a priority, man.
Absolutely. All right, how do you define success, and have you reached it?
Man, this is good. I used to think success was being in the 1% financially, being physically fit. And, that was like my thing, right? And now I see success as where my family loves me. I see success as a person that crushes it financially but doesn't have to kill themselves to get there. I see success as having a healthy body. Our bodies are our temple. I see success as a person that does good for other people, and so I think those are all those things, right? A person that's loved by their family. You can see physically they keep themselves in a good space. I would say financially they're able to give, because it's hard to give when you don't have anything for yourself. And so I think that's also an important part. And then if you're a jerk, you're not successful to me. Mm-hmm. If you're a good person, you're successful to me. Somebody that I aspire to be. Crush it in all aspects of life. You know how I am. So that's what a successful person is to me. And have I gotten there? You know what? I would have thought I was there But I got a new goal, as far as like my wealth. I used to think making the money was good. Making the money is cool, but making money while not having to work super hard is the key. And once you kind of get to the level where you're making decent money, is important. But can you still make that money and not have to destroy yourself is the next tier. And I'm not there yet. So I love what I do, but I'm still in grind mode right now. And so success to me is where you can be grinding for your family, for your for everything else, not just for your wealth. So I'm getting there.
It's talk about this all the time. I shout out to Kelly, coach, good friend of mine. Talks about anybody can make money. Some people could save money. Very few can multiply money.
That's good.
And that's the level when you're multiplying money. That's when you can live the life you talk about. So the legacy wealth, the type of money that you put aside, it's mailbox money, it's money while you sleep. That's the multiplying of money.
Yeah.
And that's where most people falter. And geez, you're crushing. I mean, 27, you're already making the money to saving the money, and you're starting to multiply it by building out your portfolio. So you're in the right trajectory. I love it. And someone else told me, I want to mention this, is because you kind of said, now I have a new level of success. That's what success is. It's levels. So once you reach one, we're not the type of people that are like, all right, I'm successful. Go away. I'm just going to go play golf the rest of my life and retire. You're just going to have a different level of success. And you're right. Maybe your level of success, the next one is being able to speak. I know you're trying to speak Portuguese, right? Learning Portuguese.
Yeah.
So maybe your level of success is being super fluent in Portuguese. Maybe your level of success is reading 20 books a year, whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily always have to be business or money related. And like you said, it's family too.
Yeah.
So there's always a different level of success. So I like how you said that, I reached it, I thought I reached it, but then I have this new level. It's because it's always going to be the case.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's true,
it's
man.
Fun.
and I used to ask people who were retired that worked as people in the stands at baseball games, and I would ask them, they retired from Verizon, they retired from Bank of America. I'm like, hey, how's retired life? And they're like, you know what, Chris, I'm out here because I was bored. They're like, I had to do something, so I'm out here working. And when I hear that, it's like, I used to want to retire at 50, then it was 40. Then I was like, man, I'll retire at 30. And now I'm like, let me stop kidding myself. I'm not going to retire at 30. So just do something you love. I think that's also part of being successful.
Yeah, love it. All right, last question. Any book, podcast, Audible, magazine, or article, or anything that you have read lately that really piqued your interest?
Oh, man. Okay. So there's a podcast called Founders. I think it's Founders. Okay. And I'm not sure the guy that owns a podcast or is the one speaking on it, but he basically takes autobiographies of these billionaire founders and talks about their lives. Excerpts from their books and also just stuff that he's researched about their lives, and I think it's amazing. I just started listening to it.
It's not Tim Ferriss, is it?
No, it's not Tim Ferriss.
Because Tim Ferriss interviewed a lot of billionaires.
Yeah,
but not that. Okay,
it's not Tim
Founders.
Ferriss.
Okay.
Yeah, but this guy's pretty popular.
Okay,
he's a young dude, and he's just interviewed some amazing people. So definitely check that out. The Uncommon Life, Tony Dungy, men's devotional. That's a big one as well. And then I guess I'll end with My First Million, a podcast that I like. It's for entrepreneurs that are grinders like myself, like you. We're building, so that's a good one. My First Million.
Is it My First Million in multifamily? It's just My First Million.
It's My First Million.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know the guys on My First Million multifamily. Gotcha. My First Million. I have to check that out. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time today, man. It was a great conversation, and thanks for sharing.
Absolutely, man. Awesome.